Hey traders, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com with a weekly read of the markets and a watch list for the coming week. As we proceed into the month of March, we saw some selling on Thursday and Friday. Appeared to be rebalancing of funds, with the trend continuing to move higher. The OIH seeing strength since the February low, as well as all the indices aside from the industrials. And we see our indicators that are yellow and red that we need to keep an eye on going into the weeks ahead. With spring approaching, we need to keep an eye on the seasonality and what the markets typically do this time of year. Yukarowitz was nice enough to point out midterm election years where we see a peak in April, May, and then we see lows into the summer. Sell in May and go away, the typical axiom. Bonds continue to be strong. We're right at resistance, and we're looking for REITs to continue to perform well as TNX moves lower. The 10-year yield, that'll positively affect XLB and XHB, the builder sectors. We saw some strength in the energy sector with OIH continuing to move higher, and we see the sectors that are green continue to be defensive in nature. Retail has been positive in February. We continue to see weakness in the carry trade, which one would expect with the tremendous drop that we saw in the Chinese yuan last week. So this week I'm watching XLE, REITs Builders. We have some positions in airlines. We see some strength in the reinsurers and a number of other areas that we'll go over. Looking at the sectors, we can see over the past month that the healthcare and utilities were very strong. We saw strength in XLB as well as technology and cyclicals. Notable was financials were weak and consumer staples. Energy was slightly negative, as was industrials. Now if we go to the past week, we can see a different picture where there was some selling in utilities and financials as well as healthcare. Looking at the last 3 months though, we can see a different picture. So keep an eye on XLU and XLV because these are defensive sectors and something you want to see reverse if you're bullish equities. If you're bearish, you want to continue to see strength in these two sectors. As far as the carry trade goes, we can always check the Deutsche Bank Currency Harvest Fund, which I use extensively. Note that the highs here are continuing to act as resistance, and we have this Kirby level that where we see a lot of volume has traded here at this price range, and we could conceivably move lower. If you're bearish equities, you want to see this area hold and prices on DBB move lower. And if you're bullish, you want to see prices get back above this level and the 200 period moving average, which is rounding here and turning lower. Looking at a chart of gold, we can see the month of February finished positive, and we did find support down here in the area between 382 and 50% fibs. Note RSI continues to climb, and MACD has now turned and starting to move higher on the monthly. Slow still got down to a buy area, oversold, and we see strength in the CRB index as well. Looking at bonds, we talked about the Barclays Aggregate Bond Fund as a benchmark for many of the bond funds that are out there. Currently I have VBTIX Vanguard Fund, which if we look at the weekly, we can see this nice cup forming and we're getting back up to these highs. That fund uses AGG as its benchmark. We can see where we had these highs back in May. We formed this cup, a double bottom inside. We formed a little handle here, or a big handle here. We created this big Kirby level, and now we're creating this smaller cup and handle, which we broke out of last week. We have a MACD cross, and if you watch TLT and IEF, they both look similar. Currently, we're more weighted in bonds as we're looking towards the seasonality trade, which is a high in equities in March, April, followed by a low in summer, as Yukarwitz pointed out on his blog. The 10-year yield, we continue to see weakness. With the 10-year yield weaker, we can expect to see continuation higher in the builders, ITB, XHB, and the REITs, which show up on our scans in abundance. And I'm looking forward to a pullback to breakout, if not a move higher this week on utilities after we saw some profit taking. This move that started off this lower trend line in January. As we pointed out earlier, John Murphy over at Stock Charts mentioned the strength in the crude futures. The OIH here, we can see that we've seen strength the entire month of February. The two largest components of that index is Schlumberger and Halliburton. And we can see, looking at a chart of Schlumberger, we can see this large curvy area here where lots of volume is traded in this ascending triangle pattern, but we did break out of that level and we're currently at resistance. There's no volume up here per se, so if this continuation on the OIH strength carries over into this week, we can expect to see higher prices on Schlumberger and Halliburton. You can note that the ATR has been sideways in a nice range here over the last several months. Note the strength in the MACD. I'd like to see a little bit of a pullback to the 10-period EMA, but this is riding the Bollinger Bands up, so this looks pretty good, as well as Halliburton, which looks stronger. We had this nice cup and handle pattern, short handle, but we are moving higher to 52-week highs. We can see strength in RSI. Not sure why that moved, but MACD and stochastics are both pointing higher, and we have a nice ATR on this too if you choose to trade options. Looking at the indices really quick, the comp, you can see that we're continuing to move higher. We're approaching this upper trend line, which would be commensurate with a topping pattern. If you're bearish, you want to see a move up to this upper trend line and a move lower down to this lower trend line, which I would expect seasonality wise, with a touch of this lower trend line sometime in summer. So we could see a few weeks higher from a bullish standpoint. So that's what I'm looking for going forward. Until otherwise noted, we are in a short-term uptrend that has looked to be very strong after we broke out above this level here. This is a chart of the S&P 500. We can see this also moved higher. Bollinger Bands are turning on the lower side, and the upper side is continuing to move higher, so there's no reason why this can't continue to move higher, being the short-term trend is strong since that February low. The VIX continues to move in a sideways range at 14 and a little bit of a high on 15, so this looks pretty good for higher prices. Anything below 20 is typically pretty good. We can see the area where we faded last time when we popped up and hit 21. Looking at a chart of the Russell 2000, the risk on trade, you can see that we're approaching 70 and a resistance level as well as this upper trend line. I put in some fibs just to give an idea as to an area where we might see a move higher to around 1215 or so, and the first level on a pullback to look at would be the 382. Looking at the indicators, we can see that Russell to the S&P 500 had a move lower on Thursday, Friday. You can see where we are stochastic wise, and CCI is giving us a sell signal. CCI would watch more on a weekly basis for a stronger signal versus the daily. But for the most part, stochastics and MACD look to be in the overbought territory. I just keep an eye on MACD. One note about the comp and the strength that we're seeing there almost entirely, as pointed out by Yukarwitz on his blog, has been attributed to the biotech shares that continue to move higher. On the S&P 500, that same index would be the XBI, and we can see the strength there as well. A lot of that's weighted towards biotech shares, which saw a little profit taking on Friday. Many of those names were showing up on our Bollinger Band TTM scan during the last 2 weeks. Looking at the Bollinger Band scan for the Friday close, we can see the names that are continuing to show strength that are showing up on our scans. There are about 60 names in this scan currently. The bearish trades, note that they're all in biotech and some in healthcare. So if we re-rank these by percent change, you can see what has been strong over the last week. I'll post some of these charts in my blog that I'll do after this video. Cloud Peak, we had mentioned that late in the week. Cloud Peak Energy, we mentioned that on Wednesday, Thursday. We had a nice follow through on Thursday, and we're testing those highs as well as a Kirby level here. Looking at the energy sector, we can see quite a few names that showed up on the list down here under exploration and production. Some of the gas names doing good as well. Looking at new field exploration, we can see we broke above these highs here. We're back above the 50, the green shaded area. Bollinger Bands continue to expand after a very brief sideways pattern Wednesday, close, and Thursday. Sideways, and then we moved higher. Note there's no Kirby here. It's just lack of volume, resistive volume. MACD is pointing higher, and RSI looks pretty good on new field. Looking at the SAR stop and reverse buy signal, we can see some names here that look pretty good. I noted Gulfport Energy and the energy sector again looking pretty good, forming this nice cup pattern. We could see resistance here at a double top 69.81. So we got a few points here to go, and possibly a handle and a breakout higher on this energy name as OIH continues to strengthen, as well as crude futures continuing to strengthen. Note that MACD did turn back up. Stochastics got close to an oversold level and is moving higher, as well as RSI on Gulfport Energy. I would think we would see some continuation going into the week. Let's look at some other energy names that showed up on the SAR scan. Equitable Resources, we're at highs. We flagged out here, and we should continue to break out above this level here, above this Kirby. Note where RSI is, MACD, and Stochastic is moving a little higher, so this would be a shorter term trade. Note the ATR as well. I'd like to see increased volume here, but this already had a nice run during February. But it looks like it's going to test and break out above these highs on early in the week. Synovus Energy, you can see this stock is also traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange here. If we take a look at that chart, you can see a little bit of a double bottom short term. Looks like it's trying to change trend. 27 level looks interesting. We could see a bounce, further bounce with RSI strengthening back up to this level here, this Kirby level here around 27.75, 28. MACD continues to move higher, and Stochastics is giving the signal to move higher. Not a big range on this one. ATR is only at 40 cents, but we could see a move up to this upper trend line and then further move up to this Kirby level in the near future as energy names continue to move higher. Note that a few financials did show up on the SAR scan as well. Note GS, where'd it go? GS is right here, showing a nice consolidation along the 200 period moving average. This could be a bearish flag, keep that in mind, but Bollinger Bands are squeezing. From a standpoint of a bullish trade, if we get back above this Kirby level, that could be very bullish going into the next few weeks, into the April-May seasonality. RSI continues to move higher, and we had a MACD cross last week. Looks pretty good on Goldman Sachs. $2.79 ATR. So we got the 50-period moving average just above to get above, but the 200 is below us as well as the other MAs. So Goldman Sachs looks pretty good going into the week. We get back above this level here at 166.45. The high was 167.82. So we get back above 166.85. This could be a bullish trade up to this 170 level and a little bit higher. Alright, that's going to do it for me for the week on Sunday, March the 2nd. Also be sure to subscribe to my blog. I've been posting quite a few scans. I'm going to start doing this on a daily basis. Post a scan, result in a few select charts. Come over and check me out. Here's the address. Note this is case sensitive. closingprint.com/cb_blog. You have to have caps here. Okay, take care. We'll see you in the room on Monday.